In today's video, we're going to be looking at 10 of the most heated arguments in Joe Rogan Experience. Let's get right into it. Joe and Matt Welsh engaged in a heated debate about gay marriage, with Matt claiming it undermines traditional marriage. He argued that marriage's primary purpose is for a man and a woman to procreate, maintaining social norms rooted in that foundation. Matt insisted that recognizing same-sex unions would dilute the meaning and purpose of marriage.
It's not only procreation, but that is one of the fundamental definitional aspects of it.
Joe challenged this perspective, asking how a gay marriage could harm a straight one. He argued that love, commitment, and mutual support are also central to marriage and questioned why same-sex couples should be denied those rights. He further pointed out that many heterosexual marriages don't result in children, such as those involving elderly couples or partners who choose not to have kids.
If marriage is only for procreation and to bond a family together, what about people that are deeply in love that never want to have children?
Matt countered by labeling such cases as exceptions, asserting that the social norm of marriage should be focused on its procreative function. Joe pressed further, emphasizing that redefining marriage to include gay couples doesn't diminish the value of traditional marriages.
I just don't see how a gay marriage in any way damages a straight marriage. I don't see it at all. It doesn't make any sense to me.
In a lively episode featuring Dave Portnoy, Joe found himself struggling to stay composed during a debate about Tommy Fury. Dave argued that Tommy wasn't a legitimate boxer, dismissing his career as being propped up solely by the fame of his brother Tyson Fury.
I saw Tommy Fury box. He is not a boxer.
Well, he's definitely a boxer.
Well, he puts on gloves.
He's definitely a boxer.
People only know him because of his last name, Dave claimed. Joe, visibly irritated, pushed back. Come on, Dave. You can't deny the guy's skills in the ring. Just because he's Tyson's brother doesn't mean he hasn't worked to carve out his own path.
We would not know who Tommy Fury was if his last name wasn't Fury.
Probably we wouldn't know as much, but he's still a good-looking guy.
Yeah.
Looks the part.
Looks the part.
The conversation grew more intense when Jamie pulled up a clip of one of Tommy Fury's recent fights. The tension in the room thickened as the video played, showing Tommy landing solid punches and demonstrating clear technique. Dave smirked but stuck to his position and denied to go back on his argument, and the conversation only kept getting intense from there.
The guy's fighting looks good. Dude, you're crazy if you don't think Tommy Fury's a
I don't
boxer.
think-
Look at that uppercut. Shut the fuck up, dude.
No.
Shut the
Fine-
fuck up.
fine-
Watch this. Watch
Volkanovski.
this. Stop. Watch this. Watch this.
In one particular episode featuring Candace Owens as a guest, things take a heated turn when Candace claims that humans should have no responsibility toward the environment because climate change isn't real.
Do I believe in climate change? No.
You don't believe in climate change.
Well, I think the climate always changes, I guess is what I should.
Joe immediately pushed back, questioning whether she was in a position to dismiss the overwhelming scientific consensus.
But this is an incredibly complicated subject.
Right.
And if you would have to talk to a bunch of different scientists and see how they gather data.
The debate intensified when Jamie pulled up a website packed with data supporting Joe's arguments. Candace, unfazed, dismissed the information as biased.
Vast majority, 87% of scientists said that human activity is driving global warming.
Yeah, I don't believe this at all, just so you know.
Joe, growing visibly frustrated, responded, "This isn't propaganda, Candace. Climate change is a serious and deeply complex issue that impacts everyone. We can't just write it off." Despite Joe's efforts to emphasize the gravity of the topic, Candace remained steadfast in her belief, showing no interest in reconsidering her position.
I don't believe it's real, okay? So I can't
But
sit
why?
here.
But
I
here's the
can't.
question.
I can't.
But why have a belief?
What do you mean?
Why have a belief as to whether or not global warming is real or not real?
The conversation grew increasingly strained, with neither side willing to budge, turning the exchange into one of the more contentious moments of the show.
Don't
I
have
just
a
find that
background
when
in
things
it. You don't
you're
understand
correct.
the science.
You are correct.
But why have a belief in it?
Right. So it's not a belief. It's not a belief in it. I don't believe in it.
But that's what I'm
In episode 1282 of Joe Rogan's podcast, Adam Conover joined as a guest, sparking a heated discussion when he expressed his belief that there's nothing wrong with transgender athletes competing in sports aligned with their gender identity.
A sports with trans athletes who are competing with with their gender, that is a sporting world that I'm more interested in.
Joe immediately pushed back, arguing that it's inherently unfair for a biological male to compete against women due to physical advantages. It's not about being against trans people, Joe said. It's about preserving fairness in competition.
But then someone comes along that was a man for 30 years and decides that they're going to be a woman and competes as a woman and destroys records and dominates you. That's bullshit. It's not fair.
Adam countered, stating that sports aren't always perfectly fair and the exclusivity should be a priority. Athletes come from different backgrounds with varying advantages, yet we don't ban them. Why should this be different? The conversation grew even more intense when the topic shifted to transgender children. Joe expressed concern about young people making life-altering decisions too early, while Adam argued that supporting children in their gender identity can significantly improve their well-being.
There's no reason to give kids hormones before a person's frontal lobe is completely fully developed, which doesn't even take place till like 25.
They are incredibly consistent in their, when they're expressing their gender identity.
Their debate just kept going, and it looked like it probably wouldn't stop at any time soon.
You're choosing to chemically change this child's body. You're choosing to inject things into this child's body.
In a highly anticipated episode, Joe invited one of his most vocal critics, Brian Dunning, to the podcast. Brian had publicly called out Joe for promoting what he referred to as bogus conspiracy theories and pseudoscience. For over 3 hours, the two locked horns on a range of topics. Brian opened by criticizing Joe's platform for giving airtime to unproven conspiracies, arguing that it spread misinformation to a massive audience.
Well, it's just factually inaccurate on so many different levels. I don't understand why you wrote it like that. Like, there's things that you said that I believe that I don't, that I've never said that I do.
Joe defended himself, countering that exploring controversial ideas wasn't the same as endorsing them. I'm not telling people what to believe, Joe said. People can decide for themselves. The debate then shifted to Joe's claim that a particular supplement could prevent intoxication. Brian, unimpressed, accused him of peddling pseudoscience.
When you say that there's a supplement that can prevent you from getting drunk, you're I'm sorry, you're against all reasonably established science. You're trying to make a buck off of people potentially getting killed.
Joe stood his ground, pointing to anecdotal experiences and asserting the need to keep an open mind. Despite their heated exchanges, neither seemed willing to fully concede, making the episode one of the most intense and thought-provoking debates in the podcast history.
Not being willing to debate it and being insecure to discuss it, rather, not debate it, but to discuss the reality of what you're viewing is silly. It's preposterous.
The debate between Joe and Eddie Bravo escalated quickly, centering around Eddie's unwavering belief in the flat earth theory. The discussion began with Eddie's claims that every image of the earth as a sphere was a fabrication, allegedly produced by a vast conspiracy.
Show me a real picture. Show me a real picture.
Listen, NASA does not have one of those satellites.
Fake.
Why do you think that's fake?
It looks like something you'd see in a movie.
Why would it be fake?
Propaganda, man.
His incense on this sparked a tense and increasingly intense atmosphere. Joe attempted to steer the conversation toward evidence, challenging Eddie to present credible proof for his claims. Instead, Eddie doubled down, dismissing scientific sources as propaganda, funded to promote false narratives.
Is there a
flat.
photo of this flat Earth?
No, I don't. Like I just said again, there's no photo of the flat Earth from space. There's no photo of the round Earth from
That's not
space.
true.
His refusal to engage with mainstream explanations only added fuel to the growing tension. The argument reached its peak when Eddie brought up the Earth's rotation, arguing that there was no observable proof of its movements. Joe, visibly frustrated, tried to bring logic and scientific principles into the discussion, but Eddie's stance remained resolute. He refused to go back on his words, which made Joe even more heated.
Eddie, people have known it's spinning forever. That's how the seasons
Gravity,
work.
baby.
That's how you see the sun. We spin around. That's why it
Okay,
makes
explain this
eclipses.
to me.
That's why you can
Age,
track
too.
time zones.
Episode 1267 of the Joe Rogan Experience quickly turned into one of the most confrontational episodes in the show's history. The tension was palpable as two diet specialists with starkly opposing views clashed over nutrition. What started as a discussion devolved into a verbal tug-of-war, with both guests subtly mocking each other's perspective throughout the episode.
Gary, I really continue to get the feeling that you do not understand human energetics, because that's not how it works.
Well, no,
Now,
I'm just saying 10 calories stored in the fat tissue.
As their exchanges grew sharper, the animosity between the two became impossible to ignore. The arguments covered everything from the benefits of certain diets to the science behind nutrition, but the two experts couldn't find common ground on even the most basic concepts.
Gotta stop doing that, dude.
Gary.
You keep acting like you think I'm an idiot.
all right, are you done now? Are you done?
Can we be clear that we're talking about...
Are you done now?
Can I just finish this?
The intensity of their disagreement forced Joe to step in multiple times to keep the conversation from spiraling out of control. Despite his attempts to mediate, the heated nature of the debate persisted, leaving little room for resolution.
You
Until
can't
I am
attack me
done.
without... No,
Gary,
you can't
you
do
have
that.
time to respond.
You can respond, write down notes.
By the end of the episode, the friction between the guests had reached its peak, creating an unforgettable moment for listeners as the two specialists remained firmly entrenched in their opposing stances.
Can I
no,
comment on
Gary,
that
you talked
study?
for a long time, and I'm going to talk for as long as I want now.
This discussion took a fiery turn when Steven Crowder argued that legalizing marijuana had caused a spike in motor vehicle accidents. His statement immediately set the stage for tension, with Joe clearly unimpressed by Steven's rigid stance.
Traffic fatalities regarding marijuana have skyrocketed.
Google that, because that's nonsense. What do you mean you've... First of all...
Yeah, I wrote about what the sources
first of
there,
all,
original study.
what?
As the debate unfolded, Joe grew increasingly frustrated with Steven's unwillingness to entertain other perspectives, eventually mocking him for being dismissive and overly stubborn.
You don't shore, man. Just like you don't shore turmeric, you don't shore ginger, you don't shore a reduced sugar diet.
The situation escalated further when Jamie pulled up a study that contradicted Steven's claim, providing evidence that complicated his arguments. Rather than calming the situation, the study seemed to fuel the intensity of the exchange.
Since marijuana legalization, highway fatalities in Colorado are at
Hold on a
near
second.
historic lows.
You have him bringing up the source that you want to find.
Washington
Bring up the
Post!
study right there. Yeah.
Both sides dug in deeper, and the conversation spiraled into an even more heated debate. By the end, it was clear that neither party was ready to concede, leaving the room charged with unresolved tension.
Since marijuana legalization, highway fatalities in Colorado
Since you
are
called me
at
hold on a second.
near
Since you called me hold on a second.
historic
Since you called me a
lows!
fucking
This conversation took a heated turn when Joe's guest asserted that societies without Christianity are inherently dysfunctional. This bold statement quickly set the stage for a heated exchange, as Joe was visibly unimpressed by the sweeping generalization.
Everywhere that doesn't have a strong Christian heritage is a fucked up place with bad morals.
That's a ridiculous statement. That's a ridiculous statement. Everywhere
ridiculous
that
statement.
doesn't have Judeo-Christian values.
Joe pushed back, challenging the guest's claim and pointing to examples of thriving cultures and civilizations that had little to no connection to Christianity. The debate escalated as both sides defended their views, with Joe emphasizing the complexity of social development and his guest doubling down on the idea that Christianity is essential for a moral and functional society.
Our culture is better. I believe our culture is better
Our
than everywhere
culture,
else in
the
the world.
culture of Christians.
I think European
Christians that are running around doing ketamine and fucking each other.
Ultimately, our sense of right and wrong comes from the Bible.
Our sense of right and wrong.
What began as discussion about religion's influence on culture quickly spiraled into a passionate debate about history, ethics, and human progress, making for one of the most intense moments of the episode. Despite Joe's attempt to steer the conversation toward nuance, the guest refused to budge from his stance, making the exchange increasingly heated and personal.
If you think that the only way for a person to have ethics or an understanding of each other to rely on ancient myths that are easily scientifically disproven, well, that's what Christianity is.
No.
In this episode, Joe Rogan and Brennan Schwab teamed up to call out Brian Callen on his exaggerated tough guy persona, sparking a brutally honest and somewhat comedic intervention. The tension started brewing when Joe pointed out that Brian's bravado seemed like a product of hanging out with people who enable his behavior, allowing him to say things that bordered on ridiculous.
Bully me. If I bully you, try bullying me right now, motherfucker.
You know what your problem is?
Hold on, let me handle this.
Here's your problem. You've talked to too many guys that let you say shit like that, and then it becomes like vernacular.
Brandon chimed in, adding fuel to the fire, as the two critiqued Brian's over-the-top theatrics and called for him to tone it down. Joe went further, arguing that Brian's exposure to toxic influences had warped up his perception, causing him to adopt attitudes that didn't align with who he really was.
What do I do? Brian, look at
all those people that I know, all those
he's got
people
something to say.
that when I first met you, all those people you used to hang around with, those are all toxic, and they've ruined the way you're allowed to communicate with people.
As the conversation unfolded, Joe and Brendan didn't hold back, breaking down Brian's defense and taking jabs at his inflated ego. While the tone was playful, the underlying critique was sharp, leaving Brian to face some hard truths.
Hey, bro, look at how what do you have to say to me? Bro, I watched a scary movie with him.
I'm gonna have to shut this podcast off.
Thank you guys for watching. Make sure you leave a like and subscribe for weekly top 10 videos. Also, let me know in the comments which one of these moments you found the most heated. And also make sure to check out these videos right here for more top 10 videos.